The night he stopped smiling. How Menglong hid his pain behind the camera lights. Under the dazzling lights and charming smiles, Menglong was the man everyone adored. A face that radiated calm, warmth, and quiet confidence. To the world, he was the definition of grace. The singer with the soothing voice, the actor with eyes that told 1,000 stories, and the man who always seemed to be at peace with himself. But behind every perfectly framed photograph and every gentle laugh was a silence that no one could hear, a quiet battle between fame and the pain he could no longer hide. The cameras loved him, and he gave them everything they wanted. Every red carpet appearance, every interview, every fan meet, Menglong never failed to deliver that signature smile. It wasn't just an expression, it was armor. People didn't see the exhaustion in his eyes, the tremble in his hands after long nights alone, or the way he lingered in his dressing room long after the cameras stopped rolling. He was performing even when he wasn't on set, caught in the illusion of perfection that fame demanded. Those closest to him would later say they noticed little cracks. Some said he had grown quieter, that his laughter no longer carried the same lightness it once had. Others mentioned how he often disappeared after long shoots, preferring to walk alone rather than join the group dinners. To the fans, his Instagram photos looked as perfect as ever. The beautiful man in city lights, the poetic captions that seemed thoughtful and deep. But behind those carefully chosen words was a loneliness so vast it could swallow even the brightest star. Menglong had always been known for his sensitivity. He once said in an interview that he felt emotions too deeply, that sometimes acting wasn't about pretending but about reliving. Every heartbreak scene, every tear that rolled down his cheek on camera, was a piece of his truth bleeding through the script. The irony was cruel. The more he touched hearts with his performances, the further he drifted from his own peace. The applause became noise. The lights became too bright. The world kept asking for more, while his soul whispered for rest. Those who worked with him in his final months described a man caught between two worlds. On set, he was professional, gentle, always polite. He gave advice to younger actors and smiled through exhaustion. But once the lights dimmed, his silence grew heavier. He would sit by the monitor, lost in thought, sometimes staring at nothing for minutes at a time. A crew member once said he looked like he was somewhere else, like his body was here, but his heart wasn't. The night before everything ended, he reportedly finished a recording session that left everyone mesmerized. The song, a soft ballad about time and lost love, carried an ache that no one could quite describe. When he sang the final note, the studio went quiet, not because of technical perfection, but because it felt like he was saying goodbye. The producer later recalled he smiled after the last take, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that says, "I'm tired now." That same night, his messages to friends were brief, almost formal. A few kind words, a thank you here, a small heart emoji there. To those who didn't know, it seemed normal. But for anyone who understood his pattern of withdrawal, it was different. It was as if he was tidying up his world, closing the last doors softly so no one would notice they were shutting for good. When the news broke the next morning, the world refused to believe it. Social media flooded with disbelief, tears, and heartbreak. Fans scrolled endlessly through his photos, searching for signs, the sadness behind his smile, the messages between the lines. Videos of him laughing on variety shows resurfaced, and people watched them in silence, realizing how easily they had mistaken performance for peace. His smile had been a curtain, one he never let fall until it was too late. Many began to piece together his final months through small clues. He had posted fewer photos. His captions turned reflective, talking about time that slips away and dreams that no longer feel like home. During one live broadcast, when asked if he was happy, he paused for a moment too long before answering, "Happiness comes and goes, doesn't it?" It seemed harmless at the time, but now it plays like a cry hidden in plain sight. His colleagues spoke of him as a gentle soul, someone who gave more than he took. But in giving so much of himself to the world, through music, acting, and endless expectations, he forgot to keep something for himself. Fame had built him a castle, but it was one with glass walls. Everyone could see him, yet no one could reach him. Every light that shone on his face was also casting a shadow behind him, one that grew darker as the applause grew louder. In his private journals, which surfaced after his death, there were entries that revealed the depth of his struggle. He wrote about feeling invisible despite being constantly watched. He described the emptiness that followed every performance, the unbearable quiet after the stage lights went off. "When they stop clapping," he wrote once, "the silence feels like a scream." These words painted a haunting picture of a man who was loved by millions, but unable to love himself enough to stay. The entertainment industry, notorious for its pressure and perfection, became both his platform and his prison. Every project demanded more energy. Every role required him to dig deeper into emotions he could barely handle in real life. And yet he never stopped showing up. That's what made it all the more tragic. He was fighting until the very end, trying to hold the image together while the pieces fell apart inside him. In the days that followed his passing, fans gathered outside his favorite filming locations, holding candles and photos. Messages poured in, words of regret, love, and remembrance. Some wrote about how his roles had saved them during dark times. Others admitted they wished they had looked closer, that they had seen through the smile. The world that had adored him finally realized that behind every performance was a human being desperate for understanding. There was one particular moment fans couldn't forget, a clip from an old interview where he was asked what he feared most. He thought for a moment, then answered softly, "Forgetting who I am when everyone else is watching." Those words, once considered poetic, now felt prophetic. Menglong had spent so long being who everyone wanted him to be that he lost sight of the one person he was trying to save, himself. In the end, it wasn't the fame, the pressure, or the heartbreak alone that took him. It was the silence, the kind that follows you home, sits beside you, and whispers that you're not enough, even when the world insists you are. The kind that no one sees when the cameras stop rolling. The kind that hides behind a smile so beautiful it fools everyone, including yourself. If there is one thing his story leaves behind, it's the reminder that even the brightest lights cast shadows, that behind every perfect post, every flawless performance, there may be someone fighting invisible battles, that sometimes the strongest-looking people are the ones barely holding on. Menglong's legacy will always be his artistry, his tenderness, and the way he touched hearts without ever asking for much in return. But it will also be a painful lesson about the cost of hiding pain behind perfection. The night that marked the end of Menglong's quiet battle began like any other, bright, staged, and full of pretense. The set lights flickered against his pale skin as the crew prepared for another emotional scene. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was playing a man who pretended to be happy while breaking inside. As the director called action, he smiled that same smile the world had fallen in love with, calm, flawless, and believable. But for the first time, even the camera couldn't hide the sadness beneath his eyes. When the shoot wrapped, applause filled the room. The director praised his performance, calling it the most authentic scene of his career. Menglong simply bowed, whispering a soft thank you. No one knew that the emotion they admired wasn't acting, it was farewell. His eyes glistened under the studio light, not from glycerin tears, but from something real, something final. The crew thought he was just in character, unaware that he was slowly saying goodbye to every dream, every smile, every promise that fame had stolen from him. Later that night, he sat in his car, staring through the rain-smeared windshield. City lights reflected in his eyes like broken stars. His phone buzzed, messages from friends, fans, and colleagues, but he didn't reply. For years, he had been the one who answered every message, every fan letter, every call for encouragement. But that night, his silence spoke louder than any word could. He drove aimlessly through the empty streets, replaying the echoes of laughter from his past, The first fan meet where thousands screamed his name. The award shows where flashbulbs turned night into day. The rehearsals where his voice soared through the air with effortless beauty. But now those memories felt distant, almost cruel. He had given the world everything, yet he felt hollow. The applause that once fueled him now haunted him. It followed him everywhere, echoing in hotel rooms, backstage halls, even in the dark when he tried to sleep. At 2 a.m., he parked near the river, a place he often visited when he needed quiet. The water shimmered under the streetlights, rippling softly in the night breeze. He had always loved this spot. It was where he wrote lyrics, where he found peace away from the noise. But this time, the calm only deepened his loneliness. He leaned against the railing, the cold air brushing against his skin, and whispered words no one would ever hear. "I'm tired," he said softly, his breath fogging the air. "I just want to rest." In that moment, he thought about the fans who adored him, the ones who found hope in his songs, who called him their light in the dark. He wasn't ungrateful. He just didn't know how to tell them that even lights burn out. He thought of his parents, of how he used to call his mother every night after filming, just to hear her voice. But lately, those calls had grown shorter. He didn't want her to hear the weight in his voice. He didn't want anyone to worry. He remembered a promise he once made to himself, to keep smiling no matter what, to be the reason others found strength. It was a promise that had carried him through years of exhaustion and heartbreak. But somewhere along the way, that smile stopped being a choice and became a mask. Beneath it, he was suffocating. The next morning, the sun rose like any other day, painting the sky gold and pink. But for the first time, there was no post from him, no cheerful message, no morning greeting to fans, just silence. It was the kind of silence that felt wrong, the kind that made people uneasy. By the afternoon, the news broke and the world fell still. The internet exploded with disbelief. Fans cried in comment sections, begging it to be a rumor. Colleagues posted photos with trembling captions. "You were always the light on set. How could we not see your darkness?" The music community mourned. The film industry froze. The man who had made millions smile had lost his own reason to. As days passed, fragments of his final moments surfaced. His studio team revealed the last song he recorded, a soft piano ballad titled "Still Here." The lyrics, raw and haunting, felt like a goodbye. "Even when I fade, don't cry for me, / the light you saw was only me trying to see myself." Fans wept listening to it. It wasn't just a song. It was his confession wrapped in melody, the words he couldn't say out loud. His apartment, once filled with music and warmth, became a shrine of memories. The walls were lined with photos, his smiling face in every one. But beside his bed they found a journal, its pages filled with ink smudged by tears. "I wish they knew that even stars get tired of shining," one line read. Another said, "When the world loves you, they forget to ask if you love yourself." It was then the truth sank in. Menglong hadn't died because he wanted to end his life. He had simply run out of strength to keep pretending. Fame had given him everything except peace. He had built a career on making others feel less alone, all while drowning in solitude. The world celebrated his beauty, his grace, his art. But no one had asked how he was doing behind those gentle eyes. In the weeks after his passing, fans left letters and flowers at the riverbank where he was last seen. They played his songs on repeat, not out of sadness alone, but out of guilt and love intertwined. His colleagues began to speak more openly about the mental pressure in the industry. Some said they would remember him not as a fallen star, but as a reminder that even the brightest souls need rest. And so his smile, once the emblem of hope, became something sacred, something bittersweet. It wasn't just a smile anymore, it was a story of how the world can love you so loudly that it drowns out your own voice. To this day, fans still post his pictures with the caption, "Keep smiling, Menglong." But now they understand the weight behind that phrase. They know that sometimes The most beautiful faces hide the deepest wounds. They've learned to look beyond the light, to see the human being who gave everything for a world that never stopped asking for more. Yu Menglong may have stopped smiling that night, but his truth continues to shine brighter than the lights that once blinded him. His silence became a message, echoing across time, that no one, no matter how adored, should ever feel unseen. And somewhere beyond the noise, perhaps he's finally free, smiling not for the camera, not for the crowd, but for himself in a place where the light no longer hurts.